With the legend of Yamoshi introduced in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and later briefly expanded upon by name, is it possible that with the upcoming Dragon Ball 2018 movie, for us to be fully exposed to the character of Yamoshi as to who he was and whatever happened to him? On today's video, we will be discussing the character of Yamoshi being introduced in the upcoming movie, along with the possibilities of seeing the character in action for the first time alongside our heroes. So strap on in and hold on to your seats, because we're going to be diving into the character of Yamoshi in the upcoming Dragon Ball 2018 movie next. If you are new to this channel and enjoy what you see, then don't forget to punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon to receive new and daily content on your mobile devices, desktops, and services that I provide, along with following me on these social media platforms to stay connected with me at all times. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. With a new movie looming over the horizon, as the focus of the film is going to be mainly on the origin of the Saiyan powers, does this also mean that we are going to be diving further into the lore of Yamoshi and where the original Super Saiyan God came from? As joining me here today to discuss the possible introduction of Yamoshi in the upcoming Dragon Ball 2018 movie is Jessica from Popo's Bedroom. As Jessica, I wanted to ask you about Yamoshi because ever since his first introduction in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, and then having to stem all the way to Akira Toriyama's recent interview on mentioning who the first Super Saiyan God was by name, a lot of people within the fandom were very curious as to if we were going to see this character be introduced in the upcoming film. And the irony behind this was, during the same time where Yamoshi was first name dropped, we also learned new information on the S cells that the Saiyans carried, in which further explains the concept behind how Super Saiyans are created and more or less how the Saiyan genetics work. And what I wanted to ask you is, going into this film with them having to further explain the origin of the Saiyan powers and diving into pretty much where the Saiyans originated from and more or less their background and history, do you also believe that Yamoshi is going to be introduced, given the concept of the original Super Saiyan God, Shenron not knowing what happened to him, with even the audience left speculating as to whatever happened to Yamoshi, with many having to believe that Yamoshi possessed Goku, which is not the case at all, I believe. I believe that Yamoshi is either A, dead, or B, either still looming out there somewhere in the universe, just at an unknown region. So do you believe it's possible for them to dive further into Yamoshi's lore in the upcoming film, and more or less even having to go as far as to show him who he was? Because according to Saiyan legend, he was the originator. He was the first ever Super Saiyan God, and then within the blink of an eye, he just disappeared. So what's your take on Yamoshi? And even if they were to introduce him in this upcoming film, do you believe that more or less he would be an enemy, or would he be an ally to our heroes?
I definitely think that Yamoshi as a character will be introduced in the upcoming movie, just because they wouldn't have wasted time in essentially stating that, giving a name to the first Super Saiyan God, because when Battle of Gods first happened, obviously they kind of just gave that little glimpse when they summoned Shenron to ask him about the Super Saiyan God concept, and they got some details from that. And I feel like, honestly, if they don't really give a character to Yamoshi and they actually don't have physical Yamoshi in the upcoming movie, then this movie may borderline the same storyline as Battle of the Gods then, if they're gonna give us a name to the character but not go into detail. Because I feel like something that we see from Dragon Ball very often is seeing things without an explanation. And one of those big things for me throughout Super was wanting to see an explanation behind who the first Super Saiyan God was, what happened to the first Super Saiyan God, and definitely getting more information about that, because if it's something that's so interesting, so intriguing, and so powerful that the God of Destruction of the universe would dream about it, then I definitely think that's going to be a little bit of an indicator that this character has to be more important than just giving a name to the first Super Saiyan God. And that's what I'm excited for to see in the upcoming movie, is that we're finally gonna get a reason as to the real story behind why the first Super Saiyan God had to become a Super Saiyan God. What was the antagonist that made him have to transform into such a state? Why does this have a connection to Beerus? Why did he dream about the Super Saiyan God? And these are all questions that I definitely think that this movie is going to answer, because seeing how well Battle of Gods did as a movie, I definitely think they're gonna want to play more on a topic similarly to that, because so many people absolutely adored the movie. And knowing now that they've released the name Yamoshi and released that, the movie would be Saiyan centered, I definitely think that it's going to be more of an indicator that we're going to see more of the character of Yamoshi and definitely get to see more history behind Saiyans in this upcoming movie.
If you piece together everything that's been provided, it would also explain as to the origin of the Saiyan powers, considering that one of the first ever Super Saiyan gods of Saiyan lore came from a period in time where we saw one Saiyan had to require the power of 5 other righteous Saiyans to combat those that were against him. So we never really found out as to what happened to him, if he's dead, if he's alive. Many people within the community have, came up, they produced theories and came up with the idea that perhaps Yamoshi was possessing Goku, which I'm completely against. I don't think that Yamoshi has any connection to Super Saiyan God Goku in the least. I think that his spirit, his very well-being is disconnected from Goku. However, it would be interesting to see Son Goku encounter such a person, because then we would be witnessing, or at least in the anime portrayal, 2 Super Saiyan gods at the same time, talking or possibly even engaging in some form of combat. But if Yamoshi were to be introduced, let's say hypothetically speaking, in the form of a person, like not in the form of, a spirit or just hearing about his lore, let's say he was introduced in physical form, do you see him having any involvement in fighting against the current Saiyans, Goku, Vegeta, since they're going to be including every single Saiyan, that also incorporates Gohan, Kaba, Kale, Caulifla. Do you see Yamoshi engaging any character if he were to be introduced? Or if he were to be introduced, do you see him just being a character where he simply explains the origin of the powers, and there is nothing more than just him having to speak about the origin of the powers, or maybe where his Super Saiyan God powers came from, and nothing more? Because for me, I would love to see Yamoshi in action, but let's be realistic. If Yamoshi were to fight either Goku or Vegeta now, it's a slaughter, considering that that would take place after the Tournament of Power. At this stage in the game, Goku would have already had Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, Ultra Instinct, and even Mastered Ultra Instinct. And we're not even counting Vegeta with his ability to also go Super Saiyan God in the manga, potentially in the movie as well, which would be amazing. But if he could do that, Super Saiyan Blue, Ultra Super Saiyan Blue, and then we have some of the other Saiyans that we saw were on the same caliber as Super Saiyan Blue, like Berserker Kale and various others. So if Yamoshi were to be introduced, would you say you would see him more as a protagonist or an antagonist?
I definitely think that having Yamoshi introduced as a character, he is definitely there to give history. I wouldn't necessarily call him an antagonist, because I don't really think that there's going to be anything he's going to do wrong to be a bad guy, or to be enough of a bad guy to carry an entire movie of him being seen as evil. But I do definitely think that he's going to come in, he's going to, however he comes about, and he's going to be able to give the context behind why the Super Saiyan God takes 5 Saiyans. Give the context behind what the original fight was, what happened to him, how the original fight went about. And definitely, I think that Goku, being Goku, is going to want to fight Yamoshi, and I think that's something that we're never going to get past, just because Goku's going to see a strong Saiyan, especially someone that is a full-blooded Saiyan, and if at this point Vegeta doesn't have Super Saiyan God, then definitely this may be Goku's only chance to fight a secondary Super Saiyan God. And yes, like you said, it would most likely be a slaughter, just because he does have Ultra Instinct on his side at this point, if the movie will be taking place after the Tournament of Power. However, consider the fact that Yamoshi's God ritual would have been done with 5 pure-blooded actual real Saiyans.
Right.
I'm just thinking that that might be able to give him a little bit more of a boost of power. That might be a good explanation as to why Yamoshi's power might be on par to a Super Saiyan Blue Goku. I don't think he would be on par with Ultra Instinct. That's just something I want to state for sure. Just because, you know, even though he does have the power of the gods, I highly doubt he actually trained with gods and, you know, was able to obtain such a technique, such a form as Ultra Instinct. So I don't think he'll be on par if Goku has Ultra Instinct. However, I do think adding in the whole blue factor and the whole Goku going Super Saiyan God factor, Yamoshi's God transformation would have had 5 pure full-blooded Saiyans. And when we saw with Goku, definitely we had Trunks, Goten, and Gohan, who were all half-blooded Saiyans, and then we had one full-blooded Saiyan, Vegeta, other than Goku himself, obviously, and then having Pan, first of all, in the womb, so that wasn't even a real Saiyan at that point, but considering the fact that Pan was made from Videl and Gohan at the fact not even being a pure Saiyan himself, being half Saiyan. So essentially, we'd leave Pan at somewhere below half a Saiyan. She's definitely, we'd maybe put her at a quarter, something around those lines. So definitely, having 5 Saiyans present, yes, was able to make him go Super Saiyan God, but I think the reason why he definitely did not satisfy Beerus in his lust to fight the Super Saiyan God was the fact that his Super Saiyan God did not occur from 5 pure full-blooded Saiyans. And I think that that's where they're gonna catch a power difference between Yamoshi and Goku, and that's where they're gonna be able to add in a good fight between the two, because definitely Yamoshi has a power 1-up on Goku's Super Saiyan God form, in the sense that, like I said, they were all full-blooded, because it was when Saiyans were predominant and there was no mixed breeding, none of that, and that Goku's Super Saiyan God form might actually be at a lower rank compared to Yamoshi.
Right, given the status of the pure-blooded Saiyans having to, you know, predominantly have, you know, like just genetics that don't interfere with other species like the humans. Like half-breeds are said to be stronger in Dragon Ball than pure-blooded Saiyans, but the fact that Yamoshi garnered the strength of purebloods instead of half-breeds could go a long way, but I really disagree with the idea of Goku losing, because after everything Goku has been through, his immense training with deities, having to fight deities, I think that it would make sense to have Yamoshi possibly beat out Super Saiyan God Goku, but it would really amaze me if Goku from there said wow, or something along the lines of saying, wow, you know, it's incredible, I never thought I would meet someone that can actually just easily destroy my Super Saiyan God power, but here, let me show you what it is to take that a step beyond, and he shows him Super Saiyan Blue, and, you know, so on and so forth. So it's just very conflicting, because let's say Yamoshi were to be introduced, I first of all, I don't see him as a villain. I think that, you know, his history is laid down in the idea that he fought for, you know, his people, he fought for something righteous, so I don't really see Yamoshi having any wrong intent, or any intent to kill or to harm. But as we go into this film, do you see Yamoshi interacting with the other Saiyans per se, like Universe 6? Because this movie is going to be really centered around the origin and having the most amount of Saiyans that we've ever seen on screen before. So you can't just have this film be introduced and not have, you know, Kaba, Kale, and Caulifla. That also takes into account some of the other Saiyans, and that also even takes into account having flashbacks of either the early days of Yamoshi seeing his fight, because I do think that we are going to see that, and also getting the earlier explanation of the S cells that Toriyama had came up with in explaining, you know, how Super Saiyans work and that entire concept. So do you see Yamoshi maybe having some sort of engagement or interaction with other Saiyans aside from our current heroes? Or would you say that if he were to be introduced, it would only be to where he interacts with Goku, Vegeta, and said people, and only them and not anybody else?
Well, I definitely think that if they're taking it there with the Saiyans, and, you know, they're definitely taking it to a level where, like you said, the most Saiyans we've ever seen on screen, all of that there is no reason to not bring in interaction with Universe 6. And possibly, maybe it's the interaction with Universe 6 that made them need to contact Yamoshi in the first place, or need to have Yamoshi come about in the first place, was because possibly something happens with the contact of Universe 6. Or maybe Yamoshi, now that he's no longer mentioned in Universe 7, because they never stated that he died, or, you know, they never really stated about his end.
Yeah, he just suddenly disappeared. Nobody ever knew what happened to him.
So it's maybe a possibility that a sudden disappearance could be moving on to another universe, because you can't explain it like they died because they didn't. And, you know, so I think that definitely, if they're, depending on the timing of when the movie is going to take place, because definitely if it is past the Tournament of Power arc, then it would make sense for them to bring in the Universe 6 Saiyans, especially with the claim that they're supposed to be the most Saiyans on screen, because unless if there's flashbacks, then how else are you going to get the most Saiyans on screen without wishing back Universe 7 Saiyans?
Right.
And so I definitely think that there is going to be interaction depending on when the movie is going to take place, because I know some movies thus far for Dragon Ball have had very indecisive, or, you know, just the time period of where they're supposed to take place is really what makes the movie so bizarre. So I think that the timing for the movie is what's going to mean everything for this, because for it to make sense with Universe 6, it definitely has to be after the Tournament of Power, and, you know, for it to be done well. But then also that's where it catches you, is because why would Yamoshi be needed power-wise if we have Goku that could go Ultra Instinct? So I think that it might be more of like a lesson thing, to where they're doing something with Universe 6 and they're really going into the in-depth into the history between the Saiyans among both universes, and that's why Yamoshi is needed, that's why he's brought about, and then typical Goku needing to fight him. And then there we have like the entire movie, because it gives you the history and it gives you the good fights.
What's most captivating about all of this is that we are going to be getting more information by the end of March as to what this film is going to more or less be about. If it's going to cover Yamoshi, if we're going to have any sort of additional information going further as to what they're going to be doing with Universe 6, Universe 7. So by the end of March, we're going to learn more or less as to what this film is going to be about and what it's primarily going to center itself around. But I think that by the end of it, Yamoshi ought to be a person that, you know, ought to have his origins more or less explained and more of his lore dived into, because with such a person having to exist only to vanish within the blink of an eye, I think that more or less it's a missed opportunity if they don't capitalize in further explaining who he was. And even if by some chance he's actually still alive out there, I think that it would be very awesome to see Yamoshi on screen for the first time interacting with Goku, Vegeta, and the other Saiyans that are going to be introduced, perhaps maybe the current Saiyans from Universe 7, the Saiyans from Universe 6, and I think that with Yamoshi having to be there, not only would it sell product in terms of DLC and toys, but we would also have ourselves the first ever look as to what he looks like and more or less where he comes from. So we would like to know what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. What are your overall thoughts on Yamoshi? Is it possible for him to be introduced? And overall, looking at the concept of the origin of the Saiyan powers, what do you guys think the movie is going to be about? And if it's possible, if Yamoshi is introduced, is he more or less going to be a bad guy or an ally to our heroes? Let us know your thoughts down below, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on all notifications. If you guys have any comments to leave, drop your thoughts down below. Check out Jessica's channel over down in the description box called Popo's Bedroom, and we'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Cue my outro, bitch!